Hello and welcome back to Headstrong. My name is Louis Strong and I host this podcast. Headstrong is a podcast where I invite a number of guests in the public eye onto the show and have an engaging conversation with them about their lives and their careers, but notably, I talk to them about times where they haven't felt so good and have had anxiety and mental health issues to try and inspire you, the listener, to believe in yourself, to talk about your own vulnerabilities and reinforce your self-worth. Joining me on this episode of Series 8 is the wonderful Millie Mackintosh. Millie shot to stardom in the hit TV show Made in Chelsea, but since leaving there, she has created a wonderful family with her husband Hugo, has some wonderful children. She runs her own podcast and has experienced anxiety in multiple levels, and she speaks poignantly about this in this episode of the podcast. So I really hope that you find this episode inspiring. Before we continue, I just want to add a quick note from our series sponsors, RCK Partners, who specialise in helping UK businesses claim R&D tax relief across the engineering, agricultural and tech space. If you'd like to find out more about this valuable source of funding for your business, head to rck.partners or simply follow the link in the podcast description below. That's rck.partners. Millie, thank you so much for joining me on Headstrong. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. Very good. It is actually boiling. So I'm hiding in my bedroom with a fan and all the blinds down. I'm wishing I was on a beach, but I'm very happy to be talking to you.
I know. Oh, well, there we go. I'm not sure that they're comparable, but hey, here we are. We're coming to the end of the summer holidays. As you say, it's boiling, sweltering hot outside, but you have had a chance to go away as a family, I hope.
Yes, we've been away twice as a family, which has been heavenly.
Do you enjoy that traveling with the children, or is it actually something that you don't look forward to anymore?
I really love having that family time. But the actual travelling, like the actual getting to your destination and getting back is not so enjoyable.
Can you remember the first time you did it?
The first time I did it, we only had one child. That wasn't actually that stressful. She was only 3 months old and she slept most of the time. Travelling with two, when they're both screaming and they're tired, it was travelling back from holiday and I was like, is it worth it? But it was still worth it. But you kind of want to forget the journey as soon as it's over. When it comes to that now, do you think you've got like a routine sorted in terms of you do this part or Hugo does this part, or is it just kind of hands on deck and pray that they're not tired? Yeah, hands on deck, definitely. I've learned traveling when they're tired. Like we did an evening flight back from Greece because I wanted to fly into our nearest airport. Stupid idea. Should have just traveled during the day when they weren't as tired. And next summer I will not make that mistake again. So Absolutely. You know, you learn as you go. But it is heavenly to have that time as a family. Hugo works during the week, Monday to Friday. So when we do have a family holiday, it's lovely to just have that time together. But also, I think it's really important to have time with your partner. Like me and Hugo are going away. Just the two of us in like 2 weeks' time for a few nights. Is that the first time you've been away together without the kids? We went to a friend's wedding in July, so we did our first 5 nights away without them. 5 nights, my word! Yeah, it was hard actually. I found it really difficult, but it was fun. But I really missed them, and I was worrying about them quite a lot and how they were doing with my parents and were they okay. I found it hard to switch off from thinking about, are they following their routine and, wanting to check in all the time, being basically just talking about them and showing everyone pictures of them constantly. You were that mum on the holiday. I was that mum. Oh my God, so embarrassing. Oh, I love that though. I mean, I know that Hugo's incredibly busy. You are so incredibly busy as well. Do you find it difficult to put that family time first? Like say when you're not on holiday, do you find it difficult to find that time in the week or sit down with Hugo and go, right, well, let's actually maybe have an evening where we can just have supper once the kids have gone to bed and relax? Is that difficult to find? We definitely really love having our evenings together, and the girls are in a pretty good routine and both luckily are pretty good sleepers unless they're ill or something. So normally they're both in bed at 6:30 we try to, if we're both in, we have dinner together, we catch up, we watch, our favourite show on the sofa, and we have that time together. And because the girls go to bed quite early, we actually get a bit of evening. And a couple of nights a week we have that, which we love. And then on the weekends, if we're in London or whatever we're doing, that's normally our family time, like all together.
What's on the box at the moment then?
Do you know what? I have to say, we were really addicted to Love Island.
Were you?
Yeah. And we're at that kind of point now where we're like, what do we do now? I mean, we're like, we need to actually like use some brain cells and like get back into a good show before. But before that, we were watching The Staircase, which was really intense, really good, but quite hard watching. And we are excited about House of the Dragon, which is about to come out because we're big Game of Thrones fans.
Oh, see, I'm one of those people that when it comes to TV and film, I'll just rewatch the same thing because it's just so comforting. Yeah. I've just started to rewatch like Fire Festival documentary. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, classic.
Did you watch the Woodstock one?
I haven't seen that. Is that on Netflix?
Yeah, that's on. Yeah, it's they tried to do like a remake of Woodstock, and that if you like Fire Festivals, the Fire Festival one is
brilliant. Yeah, it's just it's just comforting. I think knowing what's coming up.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It totally is. Or just watching something that when you've had a really long stressful day, sometimes you do just want to watch something. You don't really have to think, and just get stuck in a bit of a scroll hole while you're. Because you're not really concentrating on what you're watching, and you're both on the sofa on your phone and watching the TV.
Have you ever had those evenings where
to get back into a?
You've had those evenings where you're just sat on Netflix and you spend about 20 minutes trying to find something. You just go, oh, we'll just go to bed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
typical. Before you had children, then what were your expectations of motherhood and being a parent? Is that something that you talked about with Hugo as well, on what you kind of expected?
To be honest, I've always imagined like being a mother. I've always wanted to be a mother. I've always been really maternal. I love children. Didn't expect to give birth during a pandemic.
That was a plot twist.
That was a plot twist. But actually, I think I was pretty lucky to have a baby during that time when you kind of want to be locked down anyway in your kind of bubble at home. I actually feel really fortunate that I didn't have children that were at school and I had to homeschool them, because seriously, all the parents that did that are absolute heroes, especially with like multiple kids and trying to work as well. I grew up with my parents worked, so I think I kind of imagined that I would go back to work as well quite quickly, and I didn't take that much time off with when I had either of my girls. So it's kind of been about finding that balance. And Hugo works as well. The first baby, he actually had like 9 months off with furlough. So I felt really lucky to have that him around, and we had all that time kind of getting used to being parents and being at home.
Yeah, you get like that time to adapt and be with the kid and just exactly learn a routine. I suppose there's no better time than a pandemic.
Exactly. There's a lot to figure out. But I absolutely love being a mum. It is an adjustment. It's the biggest change I've ever been through in my life. But I love them so much. Yeah.
How much did you kind of base off, or do you think you can see from your own childhood that you've brought to you yourself being a mother?
I feel really lucky. I had a really lovely childhood. I've got a sister who's just a year younger than me, so we're really close in age, super close as kids. We grew up in the countryside and had a pretty idyllic childhood. I feel very much like we're based in London at the moment, but we love kind of doing family trips together, getting out of London, being in nature, having that family time is really important for us, definitely.
I know that London is there for you, but do you ever think that there's going to be that time where you go, here comes, I don't know, somewhere that's commutable?
Definitely. I think it's something that I'm kind of more ready for than Hugo is. So it's definitely a decision we have to make as a family. I also work from home a lot, so that I could really be anywhere as long as I could get into London, maybe once or twice a week, depending on what I had going on. But he's the one that would be doing the commuting, and it would be really hard if it meant he didn't see the girls at all. If he had to leave before they woke up and got back before they went to bed. I get that that's a really difficult like, decision. So we have to, think on it and see, but we're definitely not moving out anytime soon. Because I've got friends that have moved out and then been like, oh, it's too soon. And they've really missed London and their friends, and they've moved back again. I think having everything so close on my doorstep is really comforting.
Yeah, I see. I live in the countryside, and during lockdown, I even moved even further away. I went down to Lyme Regis, and during lockdown, obviously, it's fab because I quite literally couldn't see anybody.
Yeah,
and it's got to that point now. At 26, I'm thinking, do I just bite the bullet and stay here because surely they're going to move out at some point? But then that's still like some time when I'm like, seeing them once a month doesn't quite butter the toast.
Yeah, it's definitely when you have kids, for me, it's like not wanting to feel isolated and not wanting to feel too far away from things. I am very used to having everything at my fingertips here and just having friends around the corner. In saying that, I think it really depends on like where you live. If hopefully you've got a nice community of people, you have neighbours. We'll see. We'll see in the future. We were just in Devon, and it was. I wish I was still there, to be honest, right now.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Do you have any kind of current anxieties as a mother? Like, do you have any day-to-day anxieties as a mother, or is that just caring?
I just have anxieties.
Yeah.
I'm an anxious person. I have been my whole life. Yeah, having kids definitely makes you more anxious. There's so much more to worry about, and the stakes are pretty high.
Yeah, definitely. What sort of when did you first become aware of your own mental health then, or your anxiety? Was it when you were at school?
I think probably when I was at school. I was trying to think the other day when I first was aware of like having a panic attack or of those. It just wasn't like talked about. Like I'm 33. When I was at school, I just don't really feel like anxiety as a word was even used that often. I was quite badly bullied at two of the schools I went to, and then I was told I was depressed by a kind of school psychologist, and I've definitely found my teenage years quite difficult. And then I'd say I definitely remember having panic attacks when I was about 18.
When you look back at school then, if you're happy to talk about it, in terms of what sort of bullying was it that you experienced?
So I was at all girls school, and there was different types. I'd say a lot of kind of like name calling, teasing. It was more verbal than it was physical, but girls can be quite bitches. Yeah. I mean, like it was a very like bitchy environment, and I tried to kind of find it funny, tried to kind of almost like play along with it to kind of make it feel less uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like on the surface you wanted to seem like it was all okay and you just laugh and play along, when actually internally it's quite damaging, especially in the long term.
It definitely was. I think it really affected my confidence and my feelings of like self-worth. And at that time where you're kind of really just, going from kind of girl to teenager, and your looks are changing, and there's a lot of uncertainties, and I think it can be a really, really challenging time. I was definitely as a result, I was quite a difficult teenager for my poor parents to deal with.
What did you do did you isolate yourself when that sort of happened? Did you have anybody to talk to? Because obviously, as we say, anxiety wasn't really talked about. And I look now at the school that I was at, they've got like a mental health department now. But when I was there, and again, I was bullied as well, and it was an all boys school, and you talk about toxic masculinity and how horrible that can be. But now it's almost readily available and more talked about.
There definitely wasn't a lot available. My parents knew I was unhappy. They wanted me to see a therapist, so I saw a therapist at school, but I didn't take it very seriously. I kind of would just be like, oh, I just don't fancy being in this lesson, and walk out and go and sit with the counsellor, or say I was going to the counsellor and not actually go. I didn't want to go to meal times, because that was a place that I felt like the kind of big cafeteria was somewhere that there was quite a lot of the bullying would take place, and I felt very self-conscious like walking in there. So I would just go back to my boarding house and try and kind of avoid like big groups of the people like whenever I could. And so I would say it was quite isolating. I spent quite a lot of time. I remember just sitting in my room, just like literally staring at the wall.
Did you have any coping mechanisms yourself? Like, of course, isolating yourself is one, but it can be, again, damaging in that long term.
Not really. I'd say probably just drinking way too much whenever I could.
Yeah, well, that's
Not
the thing.
great.
No, but that's a form of escapism, isn't it? You know, it's one of those things that you just do impulsively because you go, well, in the short term, it'll make you feel so much better. And then,
it's just like, I didn't learn to have the best relationship with alcohol from a young age because it was that kind of escapism.
So is that what you saw it as potentially? So you started leaning towards it because you go to parties and everyone is drinking and consuming alcohol. But then did you ever find yourself drinking on your own?
No, it was always more in a social situation, but I guess I didn't really think about it. It was just, we all just drank a lot in those social situations. Like it was always drinking to get really drunk.
Yeah.
And then waking up with a horrid hangover and being like, oh, what happened last night? Lots of hangovers.
Can't do that anymore. Well, certainly far less.
I definitely can't do that anymore. Lasts for like a week.
Before we continue this podcast episode, I just wanted to tell you about our series sponsors, RCK Partners. If you're looking to take advantage of R&D tax credits to boost your business's cash flow, RCK Partners can help you. Simply head to rck.partners or follow the link in the podcast description below. And so when you left school then this spotlight started to happen, let's say. So let's talk about reality TV, which can, I imagine, completely blow up your internal feelings and anxieties because you've got not just people who you're at school with saying stuff, but you've got people you've never met before having an opinion. You got press joining in, and then there are cameras following you. What kind of did that do to your mental health?
Oh,
can you hear me?
Sorry, just paused for a second. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. All good. So for me, I would say kind of when I actually went on the show, I kind of had a bit of a feeling like, fuck you to all the bullies. I was like, wanting to do something different, wanting to... I mean, the show, when we first filmed it, like we didn't know how big it was going to be. We had no idea. But when it's, did well and people like really watching it, I did kind of get a bit of confidence from it because it was a bit like, fuck you to all the bullies that, were really horrid about my appearance and said I was worthless and would never do anything. And, kind of destroyed my confidence. So kind of going on the show in a way kind of made me feel quite good.
Did that sustain that feeling of kind of confidence in that regard? When did kind of you become aware? Because, there's so many, I know that some of it is scripted, but there's still raw emotions and then people are available to give their own commentary on it. When did you first become aware of it?
It was definitely like a feeling of anxiety that I remember in the pit of my stomach whenever the episodes aired, which was on a Monday evening. And we'd sit and we didn't even have Instagram when the show first came out. It was all Twitter. Yeah.
That's even worse.
How long ago it was. Exactly. So Twitter, people are like ruthless. And I would say in my 20s, I'd found a confidence that I didn't have so much in my teenage years. But, I was in my early 20s, I was definitely still, finding my feet and I was more confident than I was in my teens. But some of the comments did really get to me and people would be mean about anything, you've got no facial expressions. You're fucking boring. You're this, that, the other. You've got like 3 chins and you've got really thin lips. Like people will pick on anything and be like really mean about it, and stuff like does like get to you. Did you learn to block it out? Because obviously you can just ignore it, but that is so difficult if it's there. And even if you don't mean to, you'll just accidentally see it. You know what I mean? I did learn to block it out because someone said to me, like, you could see like 100 good comments and 1 bad one. And that if that one sticks with you, it's just a real shame because you're, what about the 100 good ones? So I just started just to be like, I'd kind of look at it and just think about the person actually sitting there writing that tweet and the pain they're probably in their life, and that they feel the need to be on Twitter slating other people, and actually just feel quite sorry for the trolls. Yeah, it's just a projection of insecurities from them. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about Love Island then, because you mentioned it as well. Yeah. Because
since a lot of things that have happened with that show, the support that they have to give now in terms of the production, there's plenty of support before. They have to be vetted for their own mental health. Then during the show, I'm pretty sure there are check-ins, and then after as well. When you joined, was that ever involved in terms of Made in Chelsea?
So the show wasn't scripted, as in like we weren't told exactly what to say. There was no script. We were told what to discuss because obviously the episodes had to make sense. They had to have a storyline so the audience knew what was going on. So they were produced, but they weren't scripted. I had a close relationship with the producers, who even became friends of mine that I'm still in touch with. And through that, I did feel supported because they would know what was going on in my life. But there were difficult moments on camera that I was pushed to experience. Like they knew that I'd been cheated on and that it would have been, obviously it would have been much better for me, and my mental health to not find that out on camera in real time. But it made great TV.
Yeah. Did you find, do you look at it and almost think as well with its slight exploitation in terms of that?
I mean, I think I looked at it as an opportunity.
Definitely.
And, there were moments where I definitely left filming feeling quite upset. I do remember that, and I needed to leave set right that moment. And I wasn't staying around for another 3 hours because I was really upset about what had just happened and I needed to be alone. And I remember being really like, no, I am leaving now. And I'm telling you I'm leaving. Because they would try and be like, no, you need to be here you need to be in the back of shot for another scene. And I would just be like, no. And be like, I've got to put like me first. I'm not doing that. There was one point where I had a family holiday booked and they said with my parents, my sister, and they said I couldn't go because it conflicted with filming schedules. And they said, if you go on that holiday, you'll no longer be in the show. We're writing you out the show. And I was like, cool, write me out. I'm going. I really need to go for my mental health. I just was going through a breakup. I was like, I just need a bit of space right now. So they wrote me out the show, but they called me back. They called me 2 weeks later and begged me to come back. So I was like, I had to put my mental health first.
Definitely. I think that's really important as well. And I think if that happened now as well, I think there would be far more acceptance of that decision.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't think I was even having therapy. I definitely should have been. I did start to have, I'd say around the time after I left the show was when I started to look after my mental health more. I started to have a better understanding.
So let's talk about that then. So you left the show and of course you had amazing opportunities given to you. Your Instagram was growing and you were a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, but then you've still got this kind of personal side of that you need to maintain and look after. So what did you do to kind of maintain your well-being?
I actually really started getting into exercise, which I hadn't before. I'd never been sporty. I'd never cared about it. I just didn't think it was necessary for my life to be particularly active, and I'd never enjoyed it. And I started going to the gym, and I started thinking differently about what I was eating. I just kind of got a personal trainer, and they educated me a lot about nutrition and thinking about like what I was actually putting into my body. And it did definitely take a while. I found it hard to get into it. I hated it at first because I found it really difficult. And then a few months in, it like clicked, and I was like, actually, I'm really enjoying this now. And it's been part of my life ever since. And it makes me feel so much better mentally.
If you're happy to say, do you remember the last panic attack that you had?
I'm trying to think when it was. It was actually a couple of weeks ago.
Are you kind of aware of when it might come on? Because sometimes people have got these kind of coping mechanisms, or, you just take yourself away. You need to go have, put on a meditation app or do whatever. So do you have those feelings of when it's coming?
I mean, I'm definitely becoming much more aware of what my triggers are. I'm actually doing weekly talk therapy at the moment. And I have certain triggers, to be honest, since lockdown and having my kids, I have had much worse social anxiety than I've ever had before.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
And I was at a wedding and it was very hot, and the feeling of being really uncomfortable, and I thought I had a heat stroke at first. I felt like really dizzy and nauseous, and then I realized I was actually having a panic attack. And I didn't leave, but it definitely took me a while to come back from it. I just had to go and take myself away and do some breathing. And it took me quite a while to calm down. Also, if I'm not a great flyer, if I'm on a plane and there's bad turbulence, especially if it comes out of nowhere, I'll go from like 0 to 100 so quick, and I'll instantly have a panic attack in that situation.
What do you do on a plane then? I
mean, breathe.
It's so difficult.
Someone can talk to you. Like, to be honest, I often just like do lose it, and like, air hostess or someone. If I haven't traveled on my own for a long time, but it's also different when you've got kids, because you're like, God, I've really got to keep it together.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard. Sometimes I'll take medication.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also really important as well, now that you have the luxury of it, to have that support and infrastructure from your partner, and also them being aware of what you're going through. But obviously as well, as a parent, a particular parent of 2, you can get tired and you can probably get snappy and what have you. Is there an understanding of that when you're a parent? Because obviously I don't know, if I'm not being a parent, but if you do snap at them, let's say, is it easy to kind of make up because you know that it's in the moment? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best advice I'd give for that is just to say sorry straight away. Even like, just admit you're wrong. Just say, you snap, and then it's much worse to snap and then just leave it, because it just like festers. It's better just to be like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, and you just get it out. Admit that you've snapped. Just be like, and you have to kind of almost like laugh at each other for snapping. Yeah,
I think especially when I imagine if you're just exhausted and you just go, okay, that just came out, I'm really sorry.
Yeah. But when you're super tired, like some of the biggest, like fieriest, feisty fights we've had were like, are in the middle of the night.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's such a good way as well, because I think in the morning you'd wake up almost refreshed and you just go, well, that was a bit silly, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the way you can react to each other when you're tired in the dead of night is like, you just like add to each other, like, you deal with it. It's to do with, it's a child related thing if one of them's up in the night, and often it would be like me being like, oh, I'll just bring her into the bed, and he's like, don't you fucking dare. It's like arguing about who should settle the child. Should we go in, should we leave them, like just that. Yeah.
Oh gosh, what can you do now? What about that responsibility with social media then, because you've got so many people that follow you, people that look up to you, and you regularly share stuff about yourself and your life. Is there that delicate balance of what you do want to reveal and kind of keep close as a family?
Definitely. There is definitely a balance there. And I definitely, since having kids, I think about like how much I'm on my phone or how much I'm online. And I want to be as present when I'm with my children as possible, not constantly on my phone scrolling, or, them seeing me like on my phone. Like, I don't want them to be used to that, because they're already from such a young age. They just want to grab it. They just like, the touch screen. And so different to when we were growing up. When I was growing up, I didn't even have a phone until I was about 14, maybe about 12. One of those old Nokias that you played Snake on.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't need to like limit my screen time, because you didn't, you couldn't do anything on it. You couldn't even go. I don't think you can even go on the internet. You could literally just call and text and play Snake.
Yeah, literally.
And I had like £5 credit, so that was that.
That's 50 texts, and then you're done.
Yeah. So it's going to be very different now. Like when the girls are growing up, obviously, I'd just love to say they won't be allowed to have a phone until they're 21, but that's just not reality, is it? And
yeah. Do you think about social media already then? I know it's a long way away, but it's difficult to know what to do in terms of monitoring it up to a certain age, private accounts, etc. Have you thought about that?
I mean, I feel like I definitely would want to be able to check their account. It's tricky as they get older. You want your children to be able to have their own, you've got to want to respect their privacy, but you also want to make sure that they're safe and they're not being, there's no weirdos like messaging them or, dropping into their DMs, or there's not being like cyber bullied. That's a whole other level of bullying that could affect my children. That wasn't even really a thing when I was a teenager, that is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, totally. And in terms of any negativity that you get now, you've got a good hold on that? Because in fact, if anything, I imagine it's wholly positive for all the work that you do with your podcast and all the kind of help that you're doing for new mums and parents. Indeed, it's really positive.
Well, thank you. I like to try and be really open on my social media now and share about how I'm actually feeling, and try, even if I'm going through something quite challenging, I think it's better just to share and be open about it. And I found that actually really helpful, connecting with the community of people out there. There are definitely still trolls. There's a whole other thing which I've learned about since having kids, called the mum police. And, they're specific like parenting trolls that want to not just criticize you, but criticize the way that you parent. And that drove me a bit nuts when I was a new mum.
Because they think they know best or something.
Totally. There's just a million different ways to do everything to do with parenting. And someone's always going to think that what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah, you just got to brush it off and ultimately, as you say, just get on with it.
Yeah, ultimately, like at the end of the day, they're your kids, so you're going to do it your way. And you can't please everyone. I think like making peace with that has definitely helped as well.
When we look to the future as well, then, do you think from your experiences, and indeed Hugo's as well, that boarding school is an option and is the right option from what you know?
I didn't have a positive boarding school experience, so definitely for me, it's something I'd be really hesitant to do. But I think we're just going to have to see like where we are, what's right for the girls, and I definitely wouldn't send them to a boarding school unless they wanted to go.
Yeah,
and if they did, it would be very flexy, and it wouldn't be like when I went and it was like, see you in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, literally, it was dropped off with the bags.
Bye. It was quite hardcore, and I definitely would miss them too much to do that. But
well, you don't know that at 13. They might be getting really.
Let's see.
Yeah, definitely.
I changed my mind.
So, what's the future hold then for the family and indeed yourself in terms of projects and exciting things coming up?
Oh, yeah, we're just rounding up our summer at the moment. We've got a little trip, just me and Hugo, which is going to be lovely for a couple of days. Sienna will be back at nursery, which she's going to be very excited about with all her little friends. I'm going to be recording the next series of my podcast.
Super exciting.
Which we're just in the planning stages of now. That's going to kick off in September. I'm really excited. It's only going to be our second season. I feel like the first one was almost like a kind of tester, just seeing how it went, and it's done really well, so kind of keen to just get back into it, have some great guests on, some great experts, and yeah, I'm really loving connecting with our audience and hearing kind of what they've enjoyed and what they want to hear more of as well.
Do you enjoy like podcasting in terms of, obviously you get to meet new people and learn new advice, hear from your people who listen to it.
Yeah.
But what's it like for you? Because you're hosting it and you're kind of
it's
like
fun.
in charge. It's cool.
I quite like interviewing people.
Yeah.
It's actually really nice being on the other side of it and actually just sitting back and hearing what someone else has got to say.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's really interesting. I've really enjoyed it, and we record it in my basement.
Perfect. So you don't even have to leave the house.
You don't have to leave the house. It's really cozy. And I do it with like my best friend Charlie, and we just have a really lovely chat. It's just actually really fun. And
you hopefully get some money.
Yes, please. Lots of lovely advertisers, please and two, please. I'm really enjoying it. To be honest, it didn't really feel too much like work. It
doesn't. It's nice to just have those conversations, and in fact that they're helping as well.
Exactly, they're helping, and with Instagram and TikTok, there's only so much you can say in these short videos. It's much more visual. It's not, you get a few words in a caption, but you can't really get what you want to say across. So I think you can be so much more open and have these much more in-depth conversations on the podcast.
Exactly. It's like an unfiltered access almost.
Yeah, exactly. Completely unfiltered. And it's really refreshing. And I think it's great. People are so open on podcasts now. I mean, I think even compared to a few years ago, people just don't hold back. And I really love that. Something
I want to ask you about is your opinion on mental health with men and kind of that, the thought that men can't talk about it. It's obviously you don't have to say if you don't feel like it, but what is Hugo open with you in terms of how he is, and you have that dialogue?
We do. We both talk about we actually both have therapy separately, and we talk about it. And we're both just on that kind of journey to understanding our own mental health better and being the healthiest and happiest we can be. And I think since having our kids and being in the pandemic, it's been so important to both of us to be our best selves and just, ultimately in search of being as happy and as we can be, especially since having kids. It's full on. It does change things. And we've both had therapy, and we do talk about it a lot. It hasn't always been like that. I'd say over the years we've been much more open with each other about what we've been dealing with our mental health, and it's so important to have that support from a partner. So all I could say is I really recommend for anyone who maybe feels like it's a hard thing to talk about. It can be difficult, but the more you talk about it, the more comfortable it becomes.
Yeah, for sure. It's always difficult to have that first, probably that conversation, because it's often something that you don't want to hear. Exactly. Well, making yourself vulnerable is so difficult.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, Hugo's very supportive. He isn't a naturally anxious person, so it's taken him a while to kind of understand how my anxiety affects me. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it affects us as a couple and as a family. So it's really important for me that he's totally on board, and he now understands things to say and things not to say.
That's great, though. It's so nice that you've got that support. And obviously, you've known each other for so long that at least you've been through that journey. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, a long, long time.
So the final question I ask every guest on the show is, what does the word headstrong mean to you?
Headstrong, to me, I like a feeling of being in control. So I'd say calm, in control, confident. That's headstrong.
Yourself.
Yeah. So
perfect.
Is that good?
Yeah, absolutely. No. It's always interesting to hear what people say, because sometimes there are negative connotations to the word headstrong.
Okay.
But then I think headstrong.
Feeling strong to me, it's more than anything.
Absolutely. Millie, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being so honest.
Thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed that.
And that's the end of this episode with Millie Mackintosh. A massive, massive thank you to Millie for joining me on the podcast. And I hope that you'll go check out her podcast, which is doing tremendously well and is in a new series right now. If you have enjoyed the podcast and feel inspired, please do share it with your family and friends, or even leave a rating and review and hit that subscribe button so every Monday morning a new episode will pop up in your library. I will see you next week for another episode of Headstrong.